I mentioned that I was going to talk about the value of every visitor. And I think that that's something that is paramount right now as we are going through a lot of shifts in the way that um, a lot of different folks in this space are trying to figure out what they're going to do about privacy and regulations and how things in the space need to be more transparent and how things need to change. And I think one of the things that's happening there is everyone is trying to build something new. And when you do that, publishers have to be on board because publishers are essential to this entire process. And I think what we're going to learn in all of this is that publishers as a whole have more power than what we're given credit for. And I think this is a great opportunity to understand the value of the visitors that land on your site. And I also mentioned at the beginning of the day that I was a retired magician. But what I didn't mention is that I'm an active psychic. It's really common, actually, in this space that a magician pivots into psychic. You don't see a lot of the reverse psychics going into magic. You see a lot of magicians going into psychic. So what I need is I need somebody that I can read their mind. I need some volunteer. All right, Max. I know Max. Max, I need you to do me a favor. Pen, paper there. Is anything written on it? Nothing written on the paper. Do me a favor. Write down your favorite place you ever went for vacation, your favorite food, and a zoo animal. And turn around. Don't let me see it. I got to think hard on this. All right, you got them? Can you hand them there to your neighbor? And what's your name, sir?
James.
James? I actually already knew that because I'm psychic. James, can you do me a favor and go ahead and read the first item on that list?
Aruba.
Wow. All right. Can you do me a favor? How about the second one?
Oysters Rockefeller.
Oh, Oysters Rockefeller.
All right. I mean, at this point, 2 out of 3 is pretty good. I don't even have to get the third one, I don't think. But let's see. What's the third one?
Zebra.
It is. It's a zebra. Man, pretty good. Not too bad. I feel people not being very impressed. Also, there was no applause. So maybe I need to pivot back to magic or just pivot away in general, back to semi-retired. So I'm obviously not psychic. And the point of this exercise is that some of you may be impressed. It doesn't seem like it. I was kind of counting on that, but nevertheless, let's pretend that there's somebody that was impressed. There we go. Thank you. That's all I wanted. So my point is that I'm not psychic. So there's something where I have some information that everyone else doesn't have in terms of how did that work, right? So number one, I'd warn everyone to beware of fraud, obviously, but also be aware of the fact that there is an asymmetry of data here where I know something and it allows me to have an advantage. And while it is a bad time to be psychic and know everything about a visitor, in this case, data doesn't necessarily have to be non-personal and non-invasive to be valuable. And what we don't want to have is an asymmetry of data between advertisers and publishers, meaning the advertiser has a better understanding of the value of your visitors than you do. And so this is a really good example. It's actually one that's unique. So you may have seen on my bio that jiu-jitsu is also something that I have an interest in. And so I actually have intimate knowledge of both of these respective businesses. And so in this case, we have Grappler's Escape. So for those that don't know, jiu-jitsu is like, it's like judo. It's sort of like wrestling with pajamas on. And Grappler's Escape is a cruise that takes out people that are interested in judo, jiu-jitsu, and wrestling, and takes them out on a cruise ship. And they worked with Jits Shop, which used to be called Jits Magazine. And Jits Magazine did not have a ton of traffic. And so when Grapplers Escape approached them with a $1,000 flat rate per month ad impression deal, their first thought was, that's great. That's way more money than we make the same amount of visitors from any kind of programmatic deal. So we'll do it. So Jits Shop's happy with this deal. Grapplers Escape, their average profit per sale, $70. Typical trips, 1,000 to 1,500 sales on a typical cruise that they would do. And so the publisher, what they know is they love this deal, $1,000 USD per month. But they really don't understand what the value is to the advertiser. And this is a conversation we actually had yesterday at the roundtables a little bit as well. One of our publishers, I think Cody from Task and Purpose, had mentioned that in a lot of cases, they, as a publisher, were educating their advertisers about the value that they were providing. But in this scenario, Jits doesn't really know, which I don't love that name, by the way, but Jits doesn't know what Grapplers Escape knows about the value of that ad space. So here's what they didn't know. That ad directly converted about 2.14% of the time, and the value of that was $27,258. So a 27x return on ad spend. So that is the best $1,000 that Grapplers Escape was spending. The publisher was already really happy, but the value of that ad space to the advertiser was significantly higher. I happen to be in a unique scenario to know this, but if I wasn't in a position to see both sides of this fence, there would be no reason for the advertiser to ever communicate this, and there'd be no sense of data back and forth between these two to understand it. And so it begs the question, as a publisher, what do we know and what don't we know about the value of our visitors? So data doesn't have to violate privacy to do this. Advertisers are often far ahead of publishers today as it relates to this. You think about, I actually am an advertiser. I can throw a lot of money into Google, into Facebook, ad products, and target very specifically the visitors that I want. Those same visitors land on a respective publishing property. Publishers don't have the same granular detail in terms of being able to price that inventory. And so it seems like it's an unfair fight, but the truth is publishers can actually do a lot more, and it's not that hard. So I've got a couple case studies today. One is an independently owned review site. The other is a gaming site in the gaming niche that's owned by a small team that owns a number of different sites. So real quick, I want to just highlight some acronyms that may or may not be used. I don't love acronyms in general, and so I just want to highlight these ones in particular because I think they're important. So EPMV, earnings per 1,000 visitors. It's also called session RPM, but I like EPMV because it can account for things more than just ad revenue. So it's how much money are you making per 1,000 visits, not impressions or pages. CPMs and RPMs are more advertiser-facing metrics. So when I want to buy ad space, I'm buying how many impressions, how many thousand impressions for X amount of dollars. So $5 CPM, that means what I'm paying for it. It doesn't necessarily reflect how much revenue a publisher is making at the end of the month. What you want is a higher RPMs or eCPMs. Does not mean you're making more revenue. A higher revenue per visitor would. So what do we know about visitors? In this scenario, the independently owned review site, well, they had previously shown no ads on their pages. They were largely monetized through affiliate revenue and product deals. So they actually started rolling in programmatic advertising to their site. And they were really happy with the way that it was growing their overall EPMV and the revenue that they were earning from ads. So 130% increase in EPMV from display just in a short period of time. They were excited about that, but I actually had a chance to sit down with this publisher, and one of the pieces of data that I was highlighting for them was the different categories that they used on their site. So they had categories of different types of content that they created. And in this case, their number one earning affiliate category was also their lowest earning ad by page RPM category. So they said, hey, Tyler, we're making about half as much money from ads on these pages, but our affiliate revenue has actually gone down the last 3 or 4 months. Is it possible that the ads are affecting our affiliate revenue? I said, absolutely. Everything that engages your audience, whether it's the content, a social media widget, affiliate ads, advertising, subscription boxes, all of that has the ability to dilute the value of something else. Just think about your attention. You have, there's a lot of different things going on out here. You've got a table right there. You've got some banners up over here. It's a lot. So your attention can only be divided between so many things. We add more tables and things like that throughout the room. It's going to detract from the value of different tables. I'm not great at examples, but just bear with me, everyone. So they had the idea that they were going to experiment by removing ads from those respective categories. So what happened? Affiliate revenue went up. Ad revenue went down. Sort of predictable. You remove ads from a category, overall ads are going to go down. So they removed all the ads from the category, so their ad revenue and their total EPMV declined, but the affiliate revenue increased by about 30%. So 3 or 4 weeks later, they said, Tyler, our affiliate revenue looks really, really good now, but our overall EPMV, the amount of money that we're making per month per visitor, has actually gone down. What should we do? Can we add ads back in, but maybe do it in a way that doesn't dilute the value of our affiliate? I said, sure. I mean, there's probably a sweet spot there, right? So they didn't use the most data-driven way in the world to approach it, but they said, cool, we're going to add some restrictions. They used Ezoic in this case to discern where different placements would show. And then they capped the total ads per page so that they could only show a certain amount of density. So they had some restrictions as it relates to ads on the pages that were earning the most in affiliate revenue. So ad revenue, ad total EPMV goes back up. Affiliate earnings take a small dip. But ultimately, their EPMV from ad revenue initially had dropped by almost 30%, if not more. And then their ad revenue almost returned to its respective level before with these restrictions. So you can see 2120 previously 1918 with the restrictions. But it's really the affiliate revenue that was able to hold steady. So you can see starting affiliate, starting ad EPMV, they have an average EPMV of about 2316. Once they started testing with removing advertising completely from the affiliate pages, their affiliate EPMV did go up, but the overall EPMV went down. And then this sort of happy medium that they to this day continue to kind of tweak here and out. They're actually kind of obsessed with this now. You can see that overall they've got an ending average EPMV that's much higher. So this kind of gives you an idea. It's a 5% increase in overall EPMV. It's actually $550 per month improvement in revenue on those pages for this publisher. And so this was a successful experiment, and it helps them. Like I said, now they're doing more and more of this sort of thing to try to find those sweet spots between different revenue models. So example number 2. This site is owned by a publisher with multiple sites, managed by a small team, and they were in the gaming niche. And their biggest concern was ad blocking. They were really concerned that gamers in general were going to be higher adopters of ad blocking. And so they wanted to find a way to endear themselves to that audience. And they thought, what better way to do that than to create an ad-free experience if they could get users to basically create registrations? So they wanted to own their audience. Another theme from the roundtables that we had yesterday with a number of different publishers, where it was talked about that just being able to, the fear in the future is that your audience will go someplace else, that you'll lose the appeal. And one of the best ways to stay in touch is to own that relationship directly. And so they thought this would be a good way to do it. Their existing site EPMV from advertising at the time was $12.56. After 3 months, revenue declined by about 42% on this site. They allowed users to create accounts for the ad-free experience. And so they came to me and they said, Tyler, this is what we did. And I said, well, what did you charge for the registration? Said, well, we didn't charge anything. And so I was like, interesting. What was your new user EPMV versus return one? Well, new user EPMV was $6.99. The return users, or their power users in this case, the ones that were spending lots of time on the site, the ones that were probably the most valuable to advertisers because they were likely very interested because they're on the site regularly. The site EPMV 3 months later, $7.91. And so they were like, what do we do now? we still have the same concerns about ad blockers, but we also have concerns about our business now. So we dug in, and actually it took some digging initially to figure out that this is actually was the cause, because when I saw that decline in revenue, my first thought was, how often are those users coming back? And it turns out a lot. The registered ones, especially the ones that created ad-free accounts, were coming back in a lot of cases 12 to, I think it was 15 to 30 times per month. And there was like an average of 12 or something like that. So they obviously didn't really understand the contribution that these types of users were having to their overall revenue. And so we decided to work backwards. So 15,000 registrations in the span, an estimated average monthly revenue loss so far of around $1,600 and growing. And they basically would need each registrant at this point to contribute $1.33 per year to account for that accelerating loss. So that's what they needed from those visitors, because that's essentially what the value of that experience that they were getting was. So they gave away to that point an annual $20,000 essentially, and it was going to grow because as more registrations get created, that's going to be a number that gets bigger and bigger. So basically what they got in exchange for that was some email addresses and the promise to exclude them from ads. And so they do own a direct relationship now, but now they have the challenge of, how do we basically stop this from hurting our business? So we work backwards with the math, and so you can actually sell this, right? So you can see, is this valuable to the visitors? So you're concerned about ad blocking. Are they concerned about ads? I mean, $1.33 per year, isn't that great? And you've got some overhead and some churn there. You become a slightly different business at that point. So you say, okay, well, more likely it needs to probably be a $2 or $3 subscription cost. So you may need to hire somebody to manage that depending on your size. And so they were like, this is great. This is something that we can test. We can see, are people willing to spend $2 to $3 on our content versus, having a ad filled experience with somebody else on the web that may be providing the same content. In this case, their content was not, I won't say unique. All content's unique in its own way, but it's not non-commodity content, meaning somebody else couldn't essentially create it without some, there's nothing proprietary about it. They could also pivot to donations. So in this case, 1 in 10 registrants, if they could just get them to donate around $13.30 per year, that would work. Or if they could just get 1 in 100 to donate $133 a year. So I think, where's Dave from Mac Observer? David mentioned the donation model yesterday, talking about a podcast, and had mentioned that in one of their podcasts, I think, you help users with technical issues and things along those lines. Yeah, so I mean, that's obviously something that people are thankful and see value in, and obviously something they may be willing to donate around. Products affiliates. So maybe, and this is what this publisher decided to do, is because they'd already promised an ad-free experience, they decided, well, we didn't promise we wouldn't try to sell them products. So they're trying now to figure out if they can get about 2% of registered visitors to generate about $5.58 in sales profit per month. So basically, they just need to sell these users enough stuff either through Amazon or through another affiliate arrangement to make each one of them average about $5.50 a sale. They already know the value of ads, so this is helpful in this exchange. So you can see here, if they wanted to test these different models now and say, let's look at the donation model, let's look at the product model and start testing these things, they could say, well, if I know the EPMV on average for advertising on my site is now $9, but I know that the average EPMV whenever I'm monetizing through subscriptions, let's say for a certain visitor segment, is $10, or even $5. You could say that, well, the folks from France here, when we monetize via advertising, it's a $4.47 average EPMV. So maybe when folks come from France, we're going to double down on the subscription model, and you can test that, or the donation model. But when you understand the value of visitors for different models, you can start to plug and play these different types of variables in, and then you just have to segment it. And it can be done by device type. It can be done by refer. You could have special relationships where you give people an ad-free experience as long as they come from a certain referrer, and all you ask in return is a donation. And if you know that those people will convert at a 1%, 10%, whatever it is that you need to make the finances work, those are all things that you can easily test. And I can promise you this was not the most sophisticated publisher in the world. They obviously were surprised to learn they were losing money after giving something away for free. So if they can do it, anyone can. And in both these instances, you have one publisher now that's increased monthly revenue by 20% and continues to grow their EPMV month over month. So you remember a 5% increase in EPMV to this point now. They've been able to turn that into about a 20% jump in revenue. And then also the second publisher that I mentioned, they've almost completely recovered their monthly revenue loss, and they're actually still growing. And they are really actually excited that they have this new I guess, more options on the table in terms of being able to monetize audiences. And they're still trying to figure out how to make them all work, but they take a lot of pride in the fact that they don't have to worry about ad blocking anymore, because that still remains a concern for them. And so it'd be great if that's all there was. My good friend Piper Lafrano is going to be up here later today talking about how to improve the value of an ad inventory. And a big part of it is understanding how one thing dilutes the value of something else and being able to measure that objectively. I think a lot of times we look at something and we say, I know that X is affecting Y, but I don't know why. And in this case, this is a small blog that I own. I've had lots of injuries, so I created a blog called Injury Health Blog. And whenever you see things like the page RPM go up or down, you ask the question, well, why? Was it the demand? Was it seasonality? What exactly is driving this? And advertisers are bidding on historical data. So when we ask the question of what is the value to advertisers, what is the value to every visitor, there are some clues that they leave behind that we can kind of dissect. And Piper, I know, is going to get into that a little bit later today. So I want to encourage everyone today to ask the question of what don't we know today? I'm sure there are people that wonder about their site. Would subscriptions work? Can we get people to give us donations? Should I show fewer ads? Should I show more ads? Should I show no ads? Should I create more content like this content or more content like that content? There are ways to start beginning to find the answers to these things, and it's to test it and to try it. So are we changing these models or strategies based on the data? So you don't have to choose subscriptions. You don't have to choose ads. You don't have to choose donations. You can choose all of these things. And I think that as digital publishers, the more tools that we can have in our tool belts for this sort of thing, the better, especially as it becomes more and more apparent that there are several large parties that we're all sort of beholden to in this space. Being able to say, I own these direct relationships, I have multiple ways of being able to extract revenue from my visitors, it gives you more power. It helps you diversify the risk in your business. So what should we test to see if we're wrong? I don't know. Everybody's different. That's the hard part. I get that question a lot. I've given this presentation once before, and the publisher asked me, Tyler, what should we specifically test? And I don't know. You all probably know the things on your respective properties or your respective businesses that are the things that you'd like to test. So I generally find that those are the types of things I like to start with. What is it that I'd be passionate about figuring out? And I start there to figure out if I'm wasting my time or not. So in this case, good data is almost better than being psychic. It definitely is in this case, because the response to my magic and the psychic trick was, to say underwhelming, I think is an understatement. But I appreciate you all humoring me and allowing me to understand fully that I cannot pivot into the entertainment business whatsoever. So I want to thank you very much. And